There have always been bad signings, but there are cases in which fiction surpasses reality. Players who arrive at clubs as the best player in the world and end up being half of what they were, to the point of being hated by their fans and clowned by the football world. Cases in which a single player ends the entire club project due to the enormous financial effort the club put into the signing, or promising talents who came to conquer the world but end up being a gigantic flop. In this video, we'll talk about the top 7 worst signings in the history of football. To make the video as objective as possible, I've decided to use a rubric to evaluate the performance of the signing. The factors are expectations, transfer fee, sell-on fee, how it affected the club's project, and statistical performance. Firstly, the 7th worst signing of all time is Jadon Sancho to Manchester United in the summer of 2021. This signing was extremely anticipated by United fans. Not only was Sancho one of the most exciting prospects in Europe at Dortmund, but he was exactly the type of player the Red Devils needed to finally find a world-class talent on the wing to bolster their squad to the next level. But his first season was underwhelming to say the least. He only managed to score 3 times in the league during his debut season, and although he did improve to 6 in the following campaign, this is when his United career started to collapse. His disagreements and fights with Ten Hag divided the dressing room and the fan base, which, no matter who you think was right, created tension at the club, which could have impacted on-field performances. Sancho left the following summer to rivals Chelsea, where he looks like he'll stay for a fee of around 25 million, a small fraction of the 95 million that was spent to sign him in the first place, making Sancho one of the most disappointing signings in Manchester United's history. Although Sancho was signed to help get United back to where they belong, number 6 joined with the responsibility of leading the front line of the current European champions. Lukaku landed in London in the summer of 2021 for a then club record fee of 150 million. Not only did he sign with the expectations of winning the Golden Boot, but he was also supposed to lead Tuchel's Chelsea to a Premier League title. Although he started strong, one event in the winter break would change everything. The Belgian had gone through a frustrating run of form alongside the club, which resulted in him reaching doubts over the project. However, this would have been fine if he kept it to himself. The problem was that he didn't, and in an interview released by Sky Italia on the 5th of January, where the striker voiced these concerns publicly, as well as his desire for a return to Inter, sent the fanbase into a mayhem. He never recovered full form, and although he did contribute a goal in the semi-final and the final of the Club World Cup, which the Blues won, Romelu would never win the fans back. He ended the season with 15 goals in all competitions, 8 of which came in the Prem. However, this was far from what the fans had imagined at the start of the season, and his Chelsea career was well and truly over. After a brief trip in London, we head back up north to the red side of Manchester, where the Red Devils were trying to right their wrongs from the prior campaign. Sancho had not managed to fill the hole on the wing, meaning that in the summer of Ten Hag's appointment, the Dutch had an ultimatum. He either had to trust who he had or go big in the market for yet another winger. The coach decided on the latter, where he pushed the board to sign his former star at Ajax, Antony. This wouldn't come cheap, but fans felt confident in the manager to make the right choice and to get the most out of the player, especially as he had done so in the past. Therefore, United fans were ecstatic to hear that the Brazilian would be joining the club for a fee of 95 million. His first campaign in England was frustrating, as he only managed to score 4 in the Prem. However, his next season was even worse, as he only managed to score 1 in the league. However, the following year he didn't even register a single goal, except one, against Barnsley in the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. These rapid declining performances led to the Brazilian becoming a meme among the community, and everything he did was mocked. He is still contracted at the club, but a comeback is unlikely. If Antony couldn't replace Sancho, then what was Dembele supposed to do when he was signed for a near club record fee of 135 million, with expectation to fill Neymar's boots? Over 6 mediocre and inconsistent years, the Frenchman failed to live up to the hype, reaching only 24 league goals across 127 games. Although he did show various signs of promise, these were always shut down by bad runs of form, low confidence, and constant injury issues, which meant that he only reached 30 league games in one season. It was always a toxic relationship between the winger and the fans at Camp Nou, which seemingly went on for longer than it should have. He will always be remembered for that one-on-one miss against Liverpool in the Champions League, which could have prevented the famous comeback at Anfield in 2019. His tough stint in Spain was finally put to an end when he signed for PSG for an acceptable, but still not close to profitable, €50 million fee. Although Neymar's boots at Barcelona were too big for Dembele to fill, the Brazilian magician seemingly couldn't find the right size in Saudi Arabia. After signing for Hilal for almost €100 million in the biggest move for the Saudi league since Ronaldo, the expectations were clear. Everyone thought Neymar would treat the league as his playground where he'd easily be one of the best players week in, week out. However, this was far from the case. Not only did he fail to back a single goal in the league across 2 seasons, but he played so little in all competitions that every game cost the club €13 million. Despite this, his contract was even more unbelievable. Over €200 million per year was paid to the winger who only made 7 appearances at the club, which adds €43 million per game, on top of the €13 million from the transfer fee. A total of €56 million per game. Ridiculous. This obscene deal finally came to a close in January of 2025 when the Brazilian's contract was terminated, allowing Neymar to rejoin his former club Santos, costing Al Hilal even more money. This signing could have easily been number 1 if it wasn't for the surplus of cash that Saudi clubs such as Al Hilal have. From one Brazilian to another, Coutinho signed for Barcelona for a record fee of €135 million in the winter of 2018. Barcelona had an obsession with Dembele's departure, and Dembele was not enough to compensate for the loss of world-class talent that was Neymar Jr., so they continued to search for someone who would. It got to the point that they were so desperate for this that they seemingly wanted an exact replica, and Coutinho was the closest they were going to get. Despite a promising start, he never truly clicked as a star in Catalonia, and after seemingly getting worse year after year, Barcelona had finally had enough and loaned him out to Bayern Munich. He'd enjoy a fairly impressive stint in Germany, where he won the sextuple with the club. However, this was also the final nail in the coffin for his career in Spain. His goal in the 8-2 thrashing against his own club in the Champions League quarterfinals turned the whole fanbase against him, and he only featured 24 times in the next 2 league seasons, leaving in 2022, marking the end to another failed replacement for Neymar. Coutinho may have been a bad signing, but he wasn't as underwhelming as Eden Hazard, the worst signing in football history. The immediate season after Ronaldo's departure, 2018-2019, after not signing any megastar to replace him, was the worst season for Real Madrid in terms of points in 30 years, finishing 3rd. Los Blancos' Champions League winning streak was ended when Ajax eliminated them at the Bernabeu in a shameful 1-4 loss. In addition to this, multiple humiliations in La Liga, including a 5-0 loss by Barcelona, worsened the situation at the club. Therefore, the next season they had to finally sign a superstar to replace Ronaldo. Hazard signed in the summer of 2019 of a club record fee of €160 million. The Bernabeu was almost full in his presentation. Expectations were sky high, and Real Madrid fans were praying for the Belgian to be their next Galactico. However, as we all know, things didn't quite go to plan. He was instantly criticized for looking out of shape in preseason, as well as his frequent injuries in his first season. And this would not improve. In fact, it would get worse year after year. With Vinicius improving season on season, Hazard's place in the squad was put in more and more jeopardy. The veteran quickly became a bench player who rarely featured, and when he did, his performances were never even close to those at Chelsea during his prime. He only ever managed 7 goals and 12 assists in 4 seasons at the Spanish capital, and by the time he was released, his passion for the sport was gone, leading to his retirement at 32 years of age. Whether it was laziness or injuries or both, the truth stands that Hazard went from one of the best players in the world to the Madrid bench in less than a year, leaving Real Madrid with a huge loss on investment, making the Belgian the worst signing in football history.